Hi everyone, Angus Campbell here. Monday the 13th of April 2020. Got the date right this time, unlike the last video, which I published this morning from yesterday. Right, back on the A70. So following on from all the cables and controls, where we're still awaiting some final bits and pieces, we'll then move on to getting some fluids into the engine now and circulating those around. So we've got a couple in question anyway. We've got the gear oil and we've got the standard engine oil. I haven't got any SAE 30 primary case oil, but for the time being I'm just going to put some standard engine oil in that. So let's get set up, ready to put this in, but also we'll get the rollers out as well. There they are, electric rollers, so we can spin the engine over and then we'll be able to check the oil pressure as well. So, whoops, let me get set up and I'll bring you back. So I've checked that we've got all the drain plugs in place and that the filter and end cap to the spine frame is all secure. So we're ready to go. So as you can see, I've got the cap and its dipstick off the top of the spine frame. Down the bottom there we've got the other dipstick out the gearbox, which is the shorter one. We know capacities anyway, I'll show you those in a minute. And I've got the filler cap undone on the primary case. The primary case does have both a drain and a level screw. It's a separate level screw on the later models. I think on the early ones, then one of the primary case screws also used to act as the level screw, but on these later ones they have a separate screw. Yeah, you can just about see it there. But I'm not going to bother on doing it and doing a level on it because we know what the capacities are supposed to be anyway. So there we go. Main oil is going to be 5 pints, gearbox oil 7/8 of a pint, and primary drive is 1/4 of a pint. So what I'm probably going to do is we'll put all the gearbox oil in. As I've got a quart can for the main engine oil, we'll just put 2 of those in, 4 pints for now. And so just put an approximate amount in the primary case. So I'll do that now. Right, not much to see to show for it, but all the fluids are in and the caps are on. And strangely enough, actually, I've only put 2 quarts in the spine frame, and it's supposed to hold 5 pints, and it's at 2 quarts. It's already at the top level on the dipstick. So I'll have to do a bit of checking on that. But anyway, put 7/8 of a pint in the primary case, and 1/4 of a pint in the primary case, 7/8 of a pint of gearbox oil in the gearbox. And with the gearbox oil dipstick, it's not showing on that, even though I've put the right capacity in it. So we've got some checking to do all round. But anyway, not much to see, but the good news is that as yet the floor is clean and nothing is pouring out. So there's nothing obvious that I appear to have missed off the motor, luckily. So next thing is we'll now need to set the bike up so we can run it on the rollers. And I want to do this in such a way whereby I'm not sat on the bike, because what I want to do when we spin it is I want to firstly be able to check that the oil's returning initially. So we're running with this cap off, and I want to be stood here watching that. And also when it does start returning, I'm going to put my finger over on it so we can make sure we get a good supply up to the top end initially as well. So I'm going to set this up in such a way where the rollers will turn it gently in top gear, so we just minimise the revolutions on the motor. Chock the front wheel, probably put a band on the front brake so that's on, and I might strap it as well to make sure the bike doesn't decide to go off through the garage door of its own accord. These rollers are pure electric, so just plug in. Unfortunately, it hasn't got a rheostat on it, so we'll have to be a little bit careful with a few tests, but as I say, we'll rig it up securely to make sure the bike doesn't pop off its main stand. But the first thing to do is to check the clearance when we put the rollers underneath the rear wheel. I think they'll clear as they are, and we'll probably need to put a bit of packing underneath the roller base, so it's got a good contact on the rear wheel. If it's the other way around and it's too tall, then we'll have to think again how we're going to do this. But let's set it up initially anyway and see what the Heath Robinson contraption looks like. And then obviously when we're ready, we'll take the plugs out of the engine as well, and ready, steady, go. Right, next morning, and we've got a bit of oil on the floor there, so it's on the right hand side of the motor. Let's have a quick look. I've got a good idea where this is coming from. So first thing is it's engine oil, not gearbox oil. So I think I've got a bit of a suspect. Let's see if I can show you. Yeah. There it is. So it's the oil pipe union dripping away there. So we'll just need to check how tight that is. I probably didn't nip it up too much originally, because the last thing we want to do is strip that thread, so let's give that clean up a bit, give that a bit, tighten up, and see where we go from there. Right, give me a sec. Here's a better view of it, I think. There we are. Now it is quite wet, but also I've noticed there's a bit of wetness coming from the join just above it where we've got that red gasket as well. So we'll do just a quick check all round, but certainly there doesn't appear to be any oil coming out from the end of the flexible oil hoses, so that's good. So anyway, let's tighten up that bolt on the union just gently as well, but we'll just check these Phillips on the bottom run of the cases, timing cases as well. Okay. Right, that's everything buttoned up and dried off. So we'll leave that a little now and see how we get on. So we'll come back in an hour or two. But I did manage to get a quarter of a turn on that union bolt, and also I did manage to tighten up a little the cover Phillips screws as well, 3 along the bottom there. So we'll see how I get on. Right, Heath Robinson Enterprises here. So the bike's on its main stand still. We've got the rollers underneath the rear wheel. We've altered the pressure in the tyre so we've got good contact there, although we've just had to pack the front wheel, as you can see there, just to get the right pressure on the rollers at the back, and we've ratchet strapped it up to something solid so it doesn't walk away. And in that respect then, I've done a quick test with plugs out in 4th gear, and the engine does spin. It was a bit tight at first and I've got a bit of oil around it, but I haven't run it for very much. So we need to check now that the oil pressure warning light is being extinguished, and once we've done that we'll then open up to see if it's beginning to return. Let's just check all the switch isn't on. Right, switch on. Get the switch in place. Right, just check everything's all right. Quick test. So it's slipping a little bit. I just need to put a bit of weight on it. There we go. Right, I'm going to turn the ignition on. The oil warning light is off. Right, and there's the oil warning light coming on. So I counted that around 12-13 seconds. Not bad. So pleased with that. So we know we've got oil pressure. So we'll turn the ignition off. So that's great news. Just check the temperature on there. Oh, absolutely stone cold. Don't want to burn the motor out, but that's believe you me, that is a bloody hefty motor. Right, next thing we can do is lift the seat. Oh, blimey, that's tight. That was just finger tight. There she goes. We'll also need it as a torch, I think. Stash of torches. Right, well I can see the oil level down there. You can't quite see it, but there's the return pipe at the top there. So that's what we're going to keep our eye on. Whoopsie daisy. Things moved a little bit then. Right. Just going to secure things a bit more. Oh, I see what happened. I see what happened. The packing came away at the front. Right, let me just set up again. Right, all tidied up, tightened up again, and also I've sorted out the chain guard as well because there's a bit of rattling there. It's still doing it a little tiny bit, but it's better than it was. So back to the job in hand. Just put a bit of pressure on the bike and we'll just get it going again, and what we're aiming to see is oil coming out of the return. And once it does start coming, I'm going to put my finger over it so we get a good oil supply up to the rocker box. There it is. Okay, happy with that. Let's not tempt fate. It looks fairly stable, but you just need one thing to get bound up somewhere and the whole lot will come crashing down. Right, now normally I wouldn't do this obviously, so I was starting the bike, I'll be sat on it, etc., as you normally do with rollers. But what we're doing here is we want to be mobile so we can check oil circulation, block off, etc. But that's it, job done. So there we go, all oiled up. I'll have another look into why the engine's dropping a bit of oil on the timing cover side and see if we can trace exactly where that's coming from, because since I timed up this morning it's still dropping some, but I think that's minor in the relatively scheme of things. But anyway, happy with that. We've got oil feeding, oil returning, oil pressure, which means we've got all around the engine, and we've got good oil pressure as well. So we'll leave it there for now on this one. We're still waiting for throttle cable ferrules, allegedly on the way. The bottom half cables for the chokes from the junction box to the carb. And also you may have noticed in one or two clips, I found in my stash a genuine new old stock original Smith's grey speedo cable, 5'6", which is exactly what we need, and I've got one spare as well. I bought a batch of 3, I remember now, a little while ago. So that's ready to fit, and then we can tidy up the cable at the front end. And the other thing that we're waiting for are the unions for the petrol taps to attach the petrol tubes to, and we've got that job to do when they arrive. So probably 3 or 4 jobs and we'll be there and we'll be ready for firing up. As I say, we'll leave the Heath Robinson extravaganza for now. Job done, and thanks as always for your thanks for watching, thanks for interest, comments and subscriptions, and we'll definitely see you all again soon. Cheers everybody, thanks again, bye bye.